Hi, I'm Steve. Today we're working on this 1968 Camaro known as the Street Fighter Camaro. It has a 406 small block Chevy, and we're getting ready to install our new Victory HD 8-rib Serpentine conversion system. Basically, you're looking at a pretty hot small block, and we have a lot of people with high horsepower, high RPM small blocks reaching out to us, wanting us to build an 8-rib system for their applications. So this particular engine has a Scat forge crank, Manley forge connecting rods, JE pistons. It's got Dart Pro 1 cylinder heads that have been ported, big valves. It's got high compression because we have Holley EFI, sequential port EFI, that lets us run high compression. So as you can imagine, this thing will make 1.2, 1.3 horsepower per cube. It'll spin to 6,500 RPM all day long. I try to limit it to about 6,200 RPM. So follow along, we're going to do this install. Before, I'm going to throw it to Kevin, our CEO, and he's going to explain what comes in the system.
Steve's been telling you about his Camaro over there and what we're doing with it, and so I'm going to tell you a little bit about this system. We did do an 8-rib for a small block, big block, and LS. We call it an HD for high performance applications. Complete system includes alternator, power steering pump, reservoir, water pump, compressor, manifold, all your pulleys, your brackets, the extra idler, heavy duty tensioner, and an 8-rib belt. There's a few things we can do to tailor this thing, finishes and stuff like that. Power steering pump is a big deal. Steve has a Fox body type rack and pinion, and it likes a little less pressure than what this pump was designed for a GM rack or GM gear or something like that. So we can change the pressures and flow rates to fit your application. We want this thing to have the drivability that you're looking for. If we leave the pressure too high, it can be too sensitive, make it uncomfortable going down the road. Obviously, if we have it too low, it can not have the power assist you're looking for. This kit comes with a remote reservoir. It's included with it. It's billet aluminum. I'm proud of it. I think it looks good. It will mount usually, say, on your radiator support or something like that. And what that does for us is, first, it gives us a little bit more fluid in reserve from the reservoir. We have hoses. It being mounted remotely also cools better, so it gives you a cooling effect. We appreciate your time. Take a look at it. If you're one of these guys that like to run it hard, I think this will fit the bill for you.
First step is easy. Install the 4 3/8-16 water pump studs. Install all 4 studs using some rad Loctite. This will help lock the studs in place, and it also helps seal the threads. 3 of the studs are 3 inches long, while the one for the bottom passenger side is 4 inches long. Install all of the studs so that they are 3/4 of an inch deep or until they bottom out. That means you should be able to measure around 2¼ inch length exposed for the 3-inch studs and 3¼ inch length exposed for the 4-inch stud. Next, we'll install the main brackets that fit between the water pump and the engine block. All components hang off of these brackets. It's a design we first introduced back in 2006. Apply a small amount of sealant to all 6 of the O-rings to help hold them in place while you install the main brackets. Some people prefer to use grease. The important thing is that those O-rings do not fall out or get pinched during the installation. The passenger side or right side receives 2 different size O-rings, 1.25 inch OD and 0.625 inch OD. Again, be careful during this process. You want to make sure that the O-rings do not get pinched or fall out during installation. All subsequent components are hung off of these 2 main brackets, so if there's a leak, you'll have to take everything off to repair the O-ring. We use high quality, precision fit, long-lasting O-rings. The main brackets slide over the water pump studs and then are secured to the block using 2 3/8-16 flathead cap screws per side. In the next step, you'll see how the water pump hex standoff nuts secure the main brackets at the top. Double check the O-rings one last time and then tighten down the flathead cap screws. Repeat the main bracket installation process for the driver's side, including the exact same O-ring and hardware steps. Next up, before we install the water pump, more O-rings. This time on the front side of the main brackets. Basically, the main brackets get sandwiched between the water pump and the engine block. With the main brackets in place, we can install the high-flow Edelbrock aluminum water pump. It simply slides in place over the 4 3/8-16 water pump studs that we installed earlier. You can see the threads from the studs extending out past the water pump mounting bosses. The water pump is secured in place with 4 stainless steel hex standoff nuts. There are 3 long nuts and 1 short nut that mounts in the bottom passenger side position. Start by installing all 4 standoff nuts hand tight, and then snug them down evenly in stages with a 5/8 wrench. Don't over tighten them, just make sure they are snug and even. About 30-35 foot-pounds using the human torque wrench method. Crank pulley is held on by 3 3/8-24 fine thread socket head cap screws. You'll be reusing your existing balancer bolt. Make sure you don't forget it, it's the only thing securing your balancer to your crankshaft. Your crank pulley is your main drive pulley, so it's important to use red Loctite on all of the crank pulley hardware threads. Our crank pulley has a register on the back side that must sit inside the bore on your harmonic balancer in order for the pulley to spin true. During installation, check the pulley to make sure it's sitting flush against the face of your harmonic balancer. We're adding lots of anti-seize compound to the threads of our pre-existing ARP balancer bolt. The last thing you want is for your balancer bolt to snap off in your crankshaft. This simple part is the alternator spacer. And the thing to know about it is the 3/8-16 socket head cap screws are made out of steel, and you'll be tightening them into an aluminum bracket. So be sure to use lots of anti-seize on the threads to prevent damaging the threads during installation. Before we can finish the alternator installation, we need to install the GM Type 2 power steering pump. That involves a spacer behind the power steering pump, the idler power steering support bracket, and a combination of metric and SAE hardware. Pre-assemble these components and hold them in place on the engine with one hand as you start the threads with your other hand. Once the power steering assembly is in place with the thread started, but before you tighten everything, you'll be adding 2 more spacers between the alternator spacer installed earlier and the idler power steering support bracket. With the power steering assembly installed and tight, we can now finish the alternator installation. We'll start by installing this alternator arm with 2 3/8-16 socket head cap screws. Install the arm loosely. The hardware goes through the idler power steering support bracket and threads into the 2 stainless steel standoff nuts. Next, we'll install 2 of the 3 3/8-16 by 3-inch long socket head cap screws, along with 2 3/4-inch OD by 1.098-inch long spacers. As usual, put lots of anti-seize on the threads and leave everything loose for now. We will tighten everything down once the alternator is installed in the next step. Using a 3/8-16 by 3-inch long socket head cap screw, you can secure the bottom of the alternator through the alternator arm and into the alternator spacer. Finish by installing the M8-1.25 by 25 socket head cap screw in the upper left mounting point. After we're done tightening down the alternator, we will skip ahead to the AC compressor assembly installation. We'll come back to this side to install the idler and the power steering pulley later on. The installation process is straightforward. First, attach the 3/8-16 by 1 inch socket head cap screws through the AC compressor arm to the standoff nuts from the water pump. Leave the AC compressor arm somewhat loose for now. Next, we'll install the 3/8-16 by 4.5 inch long socket head cap screw through the 3/4 OD by 3.505 inch long spacer on the other side of the bracket. To install the AC compressor, you'll need two M8-1.25 by 25 socket head cap screws and one 7/16-14 by 1.5 socket head cap screw and a 7/16 stainless steel washer. Your new AC compressor weighs about 10 pounds, so cradle it in one hand from underneath and start by installing the top M8 screw since it's the easiest to see and get to. We then like to install the bottom M8 cap screw. Once you've got those two done, the unit should be self-supportive so that you can go ahead and install that rear 7/16 cap screw. And to tighten that 7/16 socket head cap screw, you'll need a 3/8 hex key due to limited access. With all three bolts installed, you can tighten down the AC compressor hardware. Be sure to tighten the hardware securing the AC compressor itself, as well as all of the main bracket hardware. We'll come back later on in the process and verify all of the torque specs using a torque wrench. With all of the main accessory drive components and brackets installed, we can now install the pulleys, tensioner, AC manifold, and, last but not least, the Serpentine drive belt. The water pump pulley is fairly straightforward, with a bore in the middle of the pulley that matches the water pump, and four 5/16-24 by 1 inch long socket head cap screws. For the power steering pulley, Concept One presses a hub onto the power steering pump so that you don't have to. That makes your life a little easier. With that said, it's very important that you apply some red Loctite to the threads of the 1/4 hardware that holds the power steering pulley on so that the bolts do not work their way loose. And here's a tip. Take a small diameter screwdriver, wrap it in some masking tape, and put it between the spokes of the power steering pulley when tightening the hardware. Next up is the idler. It's held in place with a large 1/2 inch bolt and a spacer that fits between the pulley and the idler power steering bracket. Apply anti-seize to the threads of the 1/2 inch bolt. With our Victory HD kit, we supply a heavy-duty tensioner to handle the extra load created by high horsepower and high RPM use. The tensioner has two alignment pegs and is held in place by a single 3/8-16 by 2.5 inch long flange bolt. Line up the pegs with the corresponding bores in the bracket and be sure to add anti-seize to the threads of the 3/8-16 flange bolt. Only three parts left to install, starting with the AC compressor clutch pulley cover, the AC compressor manifold, and last but not least, the 8-rib Serpentine belt, which we'll install with the help of this breaker bar. The AC compressor clutch nose cover can be a little fiddly. Get it seated, get one of the bolts started, and then go ahead and install the other two. The pulley cover is purely decorative and really helps clean up the front of the AC compressor. Your AC compressor comes to you filled with PAG oil. You'll need to remove the temporary cover. Before you install the AC manifold, make sure that the O-rings are still in place. Then install the two M8-1.25 by 35 flathead bolts. We supply a high-quality Gates 8-rib serpentine belt in the kit. To install the serpentine belt, start at the crank pulley and work your way up. This belt routing diagram can be found in your instructions. We typically like to do the water pump pulley last, since it's smooth and doesn't require pulling the belt up over grooves. A long breaker bar can really help with installing this belt, since the kit comes with an HD tensioner. Once you have the belt installed, go over all the pulleys to make sure that the belt is seated properly. After releasing the breaker bar, we like to rotate it in the opposite direction. This makes sure that the tensioner is fully seated. All of the hard parts are fully installed, but we've still got a little bit of work to do. Let me show you the wiring for the AC compressor and the alternator. We have the power lead right over here. This guy, that goes to the power side of your AC relay. And then back here on the bottom, you have a ground lead, which I chose to connect to one of these bolts on the back side of the AC compressor, so it's a little bit more hidden. If you want to do this, just remember you got to do it before you install the AC compressor. If you're going to install a ground after the unit is already on the car, just go ahead and use this screw right over here and use that as your ground point. So you've got your power lead is held down by this clamp. You can take this screw off and use that point as a ground lead for your AC compressor housing. Over here on the alternator side, you can see our main power lead, which is a number 4 full copper AWG wire. And then over here is an equivalent ground lead that goes to a ground post supplied by Power Master right there. Very important if you want your alternator to last a long time, if you want happy electrons, be sure to go ahead and connect this ground wire. This ground lead is going to a bolt that's holding the motor mount onto the engine. It's an excellent ground point. That's it. All right, let's talk about torquing hardware. We get a lot of calls every day about folks asking, how much should I torque this bolt down to? What about that cap screw? It's important to note that we're not setting the torque specs on these bolts. Really, the size and type of the bolt and the material that the bolt is being inserted into determines what the torque specs are. So you can see in our kits, we've got lots of different size bolts. We've got a 7/16 coarse cap screw. We got one of these fine thread 3/8 bolts right here with that kind of head. Man, these things really grab tight. We've got a 5/16 fine thread here, and we got this little baby 1/4 inch. And there's never a case where you want to torque a 1/4 inch the same amount as a 7/16 bolt. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and created a torque spec chart on c1pulleys.com, and you can just come right over here and see whether it's a flathead cap screw or a socket head cap screw, like that type of head. And we're using all grade 8 bolts, so they can take a lot more torque than a cheapy grade 5 or even lower bolt. What you'll do is you can come over here. It's a socket head cap screw, 7/16. We like to use lubricant, whether it's an oil or even anti-seize, that's a lubricant as well. And we can see it saying lubed socket head cap screw 7/16. You want to torque that to 61 foot-pounds. So just go to c1pulleys.com and you can find that number. Alternatively, we've got this little baby 1/4 inch screw, similar to the ones that we use on our power steering pulleys. You can come up here to 1/4 inch 20 socket head cap screw lubed, and it's saying to go ahead and tighten it to 120 inch pounds, not foot pounds, but inch pounds. So you'll need both kinds of torque wrenches, a foot-pound torque wrench and an inch-pound torque wrench to do this job right. If you are doing a tiny 1/4 inch bolt like this, we really want you to use Loctite, because if you think about it, 120 inch pounds or 80 inch pounds, whatever you're using, it's really not much more than hand tight. So we want you to use Loctite to go ahead and make sure that after you've torqued this bolt to spec, it stays right where it needs to be. We'll go ahead and torque everything to spec. There's one more part to this process, which is the installation of the remote power steering reservoir and the building of a hose kit that runs between the reservoir and the pump. We're going to show you that in a separate video. That's the whole installation of our Victory HD 8-rib Serpentine conversion system for a small block Chevy, designed for cars like this that see a lot of RPM, have a lot of horsepower. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out. We really appreciate you watching. Been driving this car now for a couple of weeks and really appreciate the improvements of this system over the old 6-rib Holley Serpentine drive, particularly as it relates to the power steering, where our custom calibrated pressure and flow of the power steering pump makes a profound difference in the steering feel and feedback. If you'd like a system like this for your small block Chevy, feel free to give us a yell or check out c1pulleys.com. Thanks for watching.